Hello everybody, are you ready for another scary story? Now, since the beginning of this year, I've been sharing these stories through our podcast. We post episodes every Wednesday, but if you want to listen to any episode early or ad-free, you can check out our podcast on a streaming platform. There is a link in the description box below. And without further ado, let's begin. Arif had always been curious about abandoned places, old buildings, deserted houses, forgotten cities. To him, these places held a strange fascination. You could feel the weight of their history, the echoes of laughter and sorrow that lingered within their empty rooms. One evening, while sipping tea with his friend Sujan, Arif learned about a place that would test his courage. Deep inside the emerald embrace of the forest near their village lived a tale, so eerie it sent shivers down one's spine. A place where life seemed to stand still, a place known locally as Nishongo Gram, the silent village. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, their words painting a picture of an unsettling quiet. They said that no birds sang their cheerful songs, no dogs barked, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. It was as if the very essence of the village had been sucked dry, leaving behind a hollow shell devoid of life. Children were warned not to venture near its borders, and even the bravest of souls hesitated before entering its eerie confines. Arif's curiosity was piqued. Was it truly a place of eternal stillness, or just a figment of the villagers' overactive imaginations? Armed with his trusty camera and a burning desire to uncover the truth, he set out on his journey to the silent village. As dusk began to paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, Arif and Sujan stood at the edge of the forest. The air grew cooler, and the playful chirping of birds gave way to an unsettling quiet. The dense canopy of trees blocked the fading sunlight, plunging the path ahead into semi-darkness. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere seemed to change. The usual sounds of the forest, the rustling leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, all faded away, replaced by an unnerving silence. After what felt like hours, although it had only been an hour, they saw signs of life, or rather the absence of it. Broken huts huddled together as if seeking solace in their shared decay. Their thatched roofs caved in, and the mud walls leaned precariously, threatening to crumble at the slightest touch. A well lay beside them, its rope bucket, abandoned mid-descent, and as Arif peered into its dark depths, he could have sworn he heard faint splashes echoing from within, as if someone or something was trapped beneath the surface. But the silence pressed against his ears, heavy and suffocating, making him feel as if he were the only living creature in this forsaken place. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Arif continued his exploration, venturing deeper into the labyrinth of crumbling structures. Each house he passed had its doors wide open, as if the inhabitants had fled in haste, leaving their homes unguarded. A chill wind seemed to swirl through the doorways, carrying with it the scent of decay and the whisper of forgotten memories. Suddenly, through the gaps in a dilapidated wall, Arif caught sight of movement. At first he thought it was a figment of his imagination, a trick of the fading light. But there it was again, a child standing motionless near a gnarled old tree. For a moment their eyes met, and the child, with an eerie calmness, smiled. Then, just as quickly, he vanished from sight. Arif stood frozen, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. Had he really seen a child in this forsaken village, or was his mind playing tricks on him? Unable to shake off the unsettling feeling that had crept upon him, Arif decided to press on. As he walked, the silence seemed to grow louder, enveloping him like a shroud. The child's smile, innocent yet unnerving, echoed in his thoughts. And then he saw it, a large house standing majestically at the center of the village. Its structure was more intact than the others, and a faint light emanated from one of its windows. Hope surged through Arif, thinking he might find answers within. He approached cautiously, and as he neared, the scent of wood smoke drifted through the cracks in the walls. The sight before him sent a shiver down his spine. The door creaked open as if inviting him in. Inside, a fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Despite the desolate exterior, the interior was surprisingly neat, as if the family had simply stepped out for a moment. A half-eaten meal rested on the table, and chairs were neatly arranged. Pictures adorned the walls, each one with a scratched-out face staring blankly ahead. Then it happened. From somewhere within the house, a soft humming sound filled the air. It was a lullaby, a gentle melody that tugged at Arif's heartstrings. He followed the sound, drawn to a rocking chair by the fireplace, and there sitting as still as stone was the child he had seen earlier. His eyes, however, were no longer vacant. They burned with an eerie glow, and a sinister grin stretched across his face. Terror gripped Arif. He wanted to scream, to run, but his body seemed paralyzed, held captive by an unseen force. The humming intensified, morphing into whispers that echoed through the room. The portraits on the wall trembled, their scratched faces contorting into grotesque grins. In a panic, Arif turned and fled, bursting through the front door and into the suffocating silence of the village. But as he ran, he realized that the village had shifted, distorted, as if it were a nightmare that refused to stay put. The huts that moments ago had huddled together now formed a maze, their crooked walls twisting and turning. The familiar landmarks that should have offered solace were gone, vanished into a labyrinth of indistinguishable structures. He tripped over a raised stone platform, sprawling onto the cold, hard ground. As he looked up, his eyes met the child's once again. He stood at the end of a path formed by the newly aligned huts, beckoning with a finger, and in that moment, the horrifying truth dawned on Arif. He scrambled back, his heart hammering against his ribs, but his retreat was cut off by the rising ground. He had stumbled upon a graveyard. Row upon row of freshly dug graves stretched before him, each marked with a new wooden cross bearing the name he now dreaded hearing. With trembling hands, he pushed aside the branches that concealed them, revealing the headstones, and there carved into the rough surface, his name stared back at him. A wave of nausea washed over him. The whispers from inside the house grew louder, forming words, terrible, accusing words, the portraits on the walls, faces twisted in mockery. From the corner of his eye, he saw the child take a step forward, and when he turned to face it, the grave in front of him groaned. The earth cracked, and a skeletal hand clawed its way out, dragging a rotting corpse into the light. More graves rumbled, and the dead began to rise, their eyes burning with malevolent fire. They shambled toward Arif, their moans blending with the whispers, forming a cacophony of despair. Terror lent speed to Arif's flight. He raced back toward the forest, stumbling over tree roots and fallen logs. But the village pursued him, relentless and unyielding. The trees themselves seemed to bend and twist, forming an impenetrable barrier. The sky above was choked with thick mist, stifling any hope of escape. He tripped and fell, scraping his palms on the rough ground. As he looked up, he saw the child standing above him, his eyes blazing with triumph. The whispers, now a chorus of voices, echoed through the trees. They were coming for him, and there was no escape. The following morning, villagers found Arif's camera lying abandoned outside the forest. The battery was drained, but the memory card held one last image. It was a selfie taken by Arif, his face pale with terror, his eyes wide with fear. What was once a mischievous grin was now stretched into a silent scream, and in the background, barely visible through the mist, was a figure, a child with hollow eyes and a cruel smile, forever trapping Arif in the silent village. Since then, more people have vanished near Nisongo Gram, lured into its misty embrace and consumed by its chilling silence. Some say at night you can hear the faint hum of a lullaby carried on the wind. Others claim to see the ghostly figure of a child standing at the edge of the mist, beckoning with a finger. And when the moon is full, the brave or the foolish swear they hear the whispers, the voices of the damned reaching out from their graves, calling for another soul to join their eternal slumber.